Ever imagine Silicon Valley like a ghost town?
A ghost town.
Well, okay, maybe not a full-blown ghost town, but picture this. You've got all these brand new office buildings just sitting there empty.
Yeah, it is kind of a strange situation when you think about it.
It's like this paradox. Construction is booming, but vacancy rates are through the roof.
Right.
And that's what we're diving into today. We're doing a deep dive into this weird phenomenon in Silicon Valley.
This kind of unexpected trend,
Yeah, and what it means for everyone, even if you're nowhere near Silicon Valley.
even if you've never even set foot in California.
Exactly. So to kick things off, we're looking at this podcast episode called The Silicon Valley Shift.
It's a great deep dive into what's going on.
And the numbers are pretty crazy.
Oh, they are really something.
9 million square feet.
Yeah, 9 million square feet of new commercial space built just last year.
In 2024 alone.
Yeah, just in 2024.
But here's the kicker. Office vacancy rates hit 21.8%.
Yeah, can you believe that?
That's more than double what they were before the pandemic.
More than double.
So we've got all this fancy new office space,
All these state-of-the-art buildings.
but nobody's showing up.
Yeah, they're practically deserted.
What's the deal?
It's a real head-scratcher.
I mean, Silicon Valley was known for its in-office culture, right?
Absolutely.
All those perks,
Gourmet cafeterias.
brainstorming sessions.
Ping pong tables.
It was like the epicenter of the in-person work experience.
Right, but then the pandemic hit.
Yeah, the pandemic really changed
They
everything.
totally flipped the script.
And now remote work is the norm for a lot of tech companies.
Pretty much the standard operating procedure now.
In fact, the San Jose area has one of the lowest return-to-office rates in the whole country.
It's pretty striking.
Only about 40% of workers are back in the office.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
I was reading this article about how some companies are ditching those lavish office perks.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too.
You know, like the free food and the in-office gyms.
Yeah, all the bells and whistles.
They're trading them in for more flexible work arrangements.
It's a whole new way of thinking about the workplace.
It's like employees are saying, hey, I'd rather have the freedom to work from anywhere.
Than a free kombucha on tap.
Exactly.
Priorities have definitely shifted.
And with remote work, they can have both.
Flexibility and affordability.
Often by moving away from Silicon Valley's crazy high cost of living.
You know, it's interesting. Places like Austin, Texas have become really popular destinations.
Yeah, for tech workers fleeing Silicon Valley.
Lower cost of living, vibrant culture.
No state income tax.
It's a pretty attractive package.
I can definitely see the appeal.
Yeah, it's a tough one to resist.
But what about those industries that can't go fully remote?
That's a good question.
Are they feeling the pinch too?
Well, it's interesting. Some sectors are actually seeing increased demand because of this shift.
Really? Like which ones?
Labs, industrial spaces.
Oh, that makes sense.
Those are areas where physical presence is still essential.
Yeah, you can't exactly run a lab experiment from your kitchen table.
Exactly.
But for traditional office spaces,
The need has definitely plummeted.
so we've got all these empty office buildings.
Millions of square feet just sitting there, vacant.
Are we looking at a real estate bubble about to burst?
Well, that's the million-dollar question.
What happens to those investors who poured money into these now empty spaces?
Some experts think that as companies downsize or move to cheaper locations, they'll eventually fill up the existing buildings.
So they think it'll balance out,
Yeah, that's one theory.
preventing a full-blown collapse.
Right, a kind of soft landing.
But wouldn't that mean the construction of new office spaces would have to slow down?
It would have to, significantly.
Would have to.
If the demand just isn't there,
Makes sense.
developers would have to adjust, no doubt about it.
So maybe we'll see a shift towards more mixed-use developments.
That's a real possibility.
Combining office space with residential, retail, entertainment. That could actually help revitalize some of those downtown areas that are struggling.
Yeah, bring some life back to those empty streets.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the impact on Silicon Valley itself?
Right. What does all this mean for the heart of tech?
This can't be good news, right?
Not entirely, no.
Lower tax revenue, businesses closing.
It's definitely a cause for concern.
It sounds pretty bleak.
Well, high vacancy rates definitely have a ripple effect.
Yeah, it's like a domino effect.
Think about those bustling downtowns like San Jose.
They rely on workers coming in each day.
Absolutely.
Fewer people means less business for local shops, restaurants, services.
It hurts the whole ecosystem.
And of course, cities lose out on that crucial tax revenue from commercial properties.
It's a tough situation all around.
Yeah, it's a real challenge for everyone involved.
Yeah, it is a tough situation for some cities, but, you know, there's some bright spots too.
Really? You mean it's not all doom and gloom for Silicon Valley?
Well, at least not entirely. For one, Silicon Valley seems to be weathering this storm a bit better than some other areas.
Like where?
Like San Francisco, for instance, fewer companies are defaulting on loans there,
Oh, interesting.
which seems to suggest a stronger foundation for recovery.
So Silicon Valley is tougher than we thought. Huh. What do you think is making the difference?
It's probably a combination of things, really. Silicon Valley has this history of resilience and adapting to change.
Yeah, they've always been on the cutting edge.
And plus, many of the companies there have a lot of financial reserves.
Makes sense. Years of booming growth.
Exactly. And they're also attracting these new industries,
Oh, yeah. Like what?
like clean tech and biotech, which helps diversify their economy a bit.
So they're not putting all their eggs in one basket anymore.
Correct.
That's good. But how long is this going to take? How long until things settle down?
You mean to a new normal?
Yeah. Will we ever see those packed offices again, or is remote work here to stay?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
Most experts seem to think it's going to take at least another year,
At least.
maybe even longer for a new normal to really emerge. Companies are hesitant to make any big decisions right now.
With the economy being so uncertain.
Exactly, especially with talk of a possible recession.
So everyone's just kind of waiting to see what happens.
It seems that way, yeah, kind of in a holding pattern, but, there are some things to watch for.
Oh, yeah? Like what?
One of the big ones is that 20% vacancy rate.
The one we talked about earlier?
Yeah, getting below that seems to be a crucial threshold.
A crucial threshold for what?
Well, both psychologically and economically.
What do you mean?
Well, when vacancy rates climb above 20%, it can create a sense of unease for investors,
I could see that.
and that can lead to less investment in further development.
So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. High vacancy rates lead to less investment, which leads to further economic decline. But getting below that 20% mark could signal a shift in market sentiment.
Okay, so it could boost confidence.
Exactly. Encourage investment and kind of turn things around.
So it's not just about empty buildings. It's about the story those empty buildings tell.
It's about perception and confidence in the market. And, what happens in Silicon Valley often has a ripple effect.
Across the country.
Right. So this situation is definitely one to keep an eye on. It's a microcosm of the larger changes happening in the world of work.
Yeah, speaking of those larger changes, this whole situation has me thinking about the very nature of work. Is the traditional office becoming obsolete? Is place becoming less important than connectivity?
Those are the questions we're all grappling with right now. I mean, we've seen that remote work can be incredibly effective.
For certain roles and industries.
Exactly. But there's still a lot of debate about the long-term impact on collaboration,
Innovation.
company culture.
It's crazy how the pandemic just forced us to rethink so many aspects of work.
It really did.
I mean, I remember when working from home was like a rare exception.
A special treat.
And now it's the norm for so many people.
It's pretty wild when you think about it.
It really makes you wonder what's next.
It does. There are definitely some challenges ahead.
Like what?
Well, we need to figure out how to create engaging and inclusive work environments regardless of location.
That's a big one.
And we need to address concerns about digital equity.
Making sure everyone has the tools they need.
Exactly. Ensuring everyone has access to the technology and resources they need to succeed in a remote-first world.
Right, so it sounds like there are more questions than answers right now.
Maybe, but I think that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating.
I agree. It's a pivotal moment in the evolution of work.
Absolutely. What happens next in Silicon Valley could very well be a preview of what's to come for other industries and regions.
It's a story that's still being written.
Exactly. It's an evolving narrative, and we're all part of it.
Yeah, it really is a lot to think about, even if you're not in tech.
Right. Even if you're nowhere near Silicon Valley.
This shift in how and where we work, it's bound to have some kind of impact on everyone.
I think. Yeah, I think you're right. What's happening in Silicon Valley, it's like a glimpse into the future of work.
A preview of what's to come.
Exactly. All the challenges and opportunities that everyone will be facing.
It makes you wonder about the future of cities.
Definitely.
The role of offices, the balance between work and life.
All these big questions.
Like what happens to those downtown areas?
The ones that rely so heavily on office workers.
If more and more companies embrace remote work.
Yeah, how do we create that sense of community and connection?
When people are scattered all over the place.
Across the globe, even.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
We might see a resurgence of these smaller, localized work hubs.
What do you mean?
Like places that offer a blend of remote and in-person collaboration.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe a rise in co-working spaces.
Tailored to specific industries or communities. That's a cool idea, kind of like a hybrid model,
Exactly.
where you get the flexibility of remote work,
But also the benefits of in-person interaction.
the best of both worlds.
Right, and this could be a chance to revitalize those struggling downtown areas.
Yeah, instead of just empty office buildings.
Imagine transforming them into these vibrant community spaces.
Co-working hubs, maker spaces.
Even residential units for remote workers.
Turn those concrete giants into something new.
Thriving centers for innovation and connection.
It's like this crisis is forcing us to think outside the box.
To rethink how our cities work.
It's not just about physical spaces either.
Right, it's about reimagining how we work all together.
How do we foster collaboration and mentorship when everyone's remote?
How do we ensure everyone has equal access to opportunities?
No matter where they live.
Exactly.
It's a lot to figure out, but I'm actually kind of optimistic.
Optimistic.
Yeah, I think this shift towards more flexible and distributed work.
It could actually lead to a more equitable and fulfilling work experience for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a real chance to create a more balanced approach to work.
One that prioritizes well-being.
Allows people to thrive both personally and professionally. So next time you hear about Silicon Valley and those empty office buildings,
Think about the changes they represent.
the world of work is changing.
And we all have a role to play in shaping that change.
It's a story that's still unfolding.
This situation makes us really rethink the nature of work.
Is place becoming less important than connection?
Will this trend continue?
Or will we swing back to in-person interaction?
What do you think?
That's a great question for our listeners.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Silicon Valley's empty offices.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.